This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by the Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Zamzow. I am here with the editor-in-chief. I like to call her the commander, Janelle Fosquet. We have a very special guest with us today. Janelle, I'm excited. I know you're excited because we're going to just geek out today on this episode. We have with us Kirk McKinzie, a.k.a. Captain Kirk, from all things like smart technologies. He is a former captain from Consumnes Fire. I rehearsed that damn thing and I still messed it up in California. Now he serves as the president of McKinsey Smart Technologies, where he consults on basically a subject matter expert on anything smart, meaning technology. He really has a great emphasis and experience with community risk reduction, recognized as an award-winning smart first responder technologist, and is also a member of the IAFC Tech Council. And I'm going through this fairly quickly because I'm excited to geek out because we started before we started recording, and we're just going to talk about a lot of different things that you as a firefighter, as a chief, as an officer, anyone in the fire service needs to start to think about. So welcome, Kirk. Thanks so much for being here, man. And I'm excited just to get the conversation rolling.
Thank you, Zam and Janelle. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor.
We talked behind the scenes about, man, we could go so many different places about tech. And, right away, I think everybody thinks about ChatGPT. But what other things, are you seeing? I mean, we have drones, we have wearables, we have connected vehicles, we have AI. I mean, give me some of the things that you're having normal conversations about and really where your passion lies when you talk with tech.
Well, specific with you bring up large language models, like the idea. But I remember like when we first saw GPT come out, folks would be like, "Well, I don't want to use that." And I actually had someone taking a English lit class at UC Berkeley. Who was, "Oh yeah, our professor." I said, "Let me know what your professors say about whether you're going to be able to use it." "Oh no, we're not allowed to use it." And that it doesn't know much about ancient Greek writing styles. And I said, "Oh, really?" And so I asked the machine, design a Shakespearean play in ancient Greek style, and it spit out a thing. And I said, "Here you go. It's smarter than we think." And people have been using spell check for a long time. And now we have these opportunities to digest the output from today, right? We could take the transcript and put that in there. And what are so maybe firefighters or chiefs, they want to identify what can they work on first that we talk about today. And they can ask the machine, if you will, whatever large language model it is.
Meanwhile, you made the rebellious side of me think about doing an EMS report in Greek language now, or Shakespearean speak is really right. So I hope someone right now is listening going, "Hey, let's try that. Let's do an EMS report in Shakespeare."
There's a lot of Latin there. Your CQI nurse might have a comment on that. But while we're all getting used to using these tools that seem relatively fresh, they've been around maybe 30 years in academia, but now we have fully autonomous cars that are driving per mile as safer than humans. And some of the big cities, I've driven in them a couple times. First, like 7 years ago with a driver, but now twice, no one at the wheel except the machine. And so what am I seeing? I'm talking to the original equipment manufacturers about what's your fully autonomous fire apparatus strategy. Is it going to be 100 years? 50 years? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's coming.
Yeah. What else? We could get into drones, right? I think a lot of people have started to see there's a lot of value in drones. And I know that you've worked with Chief Muncie over at San Bernardino County. Give us a little insights as to what kind of things are they doing over there? And I know you've been hand in hand with helping them with that. As a matter of fact, you got a report that you've done, basically like a tech report, and like, give us a little insights there.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, and their team, they're doing their own good work. One of their personnel, while they were still on the line, did so much with their drone system and capturing video from fires that then they got put 40 hours a week into a robotics program. And the chief is working on getting funding together. And they have a quadruped robot on the way that they received through grant funding. And they are putting aircraft over fires and making a difference. So command and control wants situational awareness, and they're calling for reports from interior crews. Crews are stretching the line, putting wet stuff on the red stuff. They don't have time to paint a picture with words. And when we can have live video content or thermal imaging, that's making a difference. And then they're looking at, well, they just shut down their highway again recently, and they had people having heat-related illness out on the highway. I think the last one they indicated that they had a CPR in progress, but the freeway's plugged in both directions. What do we do? Oh, maybe we can get an AED out to the scene. Or how do we have an airborne asset that's there 24 hours a day at a high altitude and scanning the highway to see when there's a problem, so we don't have to wait for someone to report an incident? The machine, or a set of machines, systems of systems, can report that there's an issue that needs to be looked at. So and we just did the trial. I'll get over to Janelle some links. They just did a trial with people, identify them as flying cars. They're VTOLs, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, that are capable of flying a paramedic or fly equipment, no crew in it. You can just fly it like a giant drone, put 230 pounds in there, fly it 30 miles and deliver equipment or whole blood or water, or extricate one of your personnel. So you have a stable firefighter that broke a leg out on a wildfire event, and the heavy lift helicopters are busy with their buckets putting 300 gallons of water on the fire. So they're working on doing a lot, and they're not the only ones. I was just on the phone with the lead of robotics for FDNY. A lot of good agencies doing some amazing work.
So Kirk, it occurs to me that maybe we should add a primer in here for folks who are listening, because we're going to have people listening to this who are thinking, yeah, we're close. We could do something like that. Then we have someone else who might be listening and thinking, I need to get a ChatGPT account, I guess, and haven't even really dipped their toes into these waters. So regardless of where you're coming from, where you're at now, what advice would you give in terms of just the mindset for listening to or like learning about these new technologies, so that people don't become really overwhelmed really fast? Because we're about to give a lot of different examples that run the gamut,
sure,
right?
Sure. Let's do the crawl, walk, run. I'll feed you a little of that, with understanding that the tech is on a crawl, run, fly pace of things. Enterprise teams are building it faster than we can get on board with it. So we'll give the link to the San Bernardino County's technology plan. That was over a 2-year piece of work that identified and very deeply looked at the tech, talked to personnel, put together a technology advisory group. And it really helps spell out for someone who's maybe just getting started, what do we need? And Chief Munzie says, well, we need culture. We need a culture that's willing to accept it. We need to educate ourselves on the use of the tech that we have now that we're not utilizing as well as we might, any of the software or hardware stacks that we utilize. We need funding. And how might we do that? And we need public-private partnerships. And so it's a good document for people to go to. And then the other thing is, go to the iChiefs Technology Council webpage, right? So there's room for more folks on the council if they're interested, but just getting started, there's a lot of great content on the iChiefs site for previous webcasts that have gone on, different enterprise teams, small, medium, and large, that came to speak to share what they're working on. Microsoft's building it for 320 million Americans that aren't first responders. What about the couple million that are? They're going to build it for everybody else, 4.5 billion connected people on the planet. And then how do we harden it and encrypt it and make it safe and secure for first responders?
Quick plug for the Tech Council. They've been doing some great work with their Tech Talk Tuesdays. The first and third Tuesdays of the month, they are live on IAFC TV on YouTube, and you can go back and watch them anytime. So they've been doing great work. We've talked to them before about, every department should have somebody on the council. Anyone can join, and then you can report back to your department about what's happening in order to try and stay on top of this. Because like you said, the technology is advancing faster than we can keep up with right now. So I encourage you to join that group.
And you look at problems in the fire service, we talk about the wildland urban interface. And I think this is a really, right, like we're wildfires, California. This is a really good example of how technology can help, because Chief Muncie was telling me that, some of their drones or they have technology that can start to identify when fire starts to really from its inception, correct? Like there's surveillance. I shouldn't use the surveillance word. There's technology that can sense when those episodes are beginning. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And so in defense and law enforcement, maybe the surveillance term might be used. For us, right, we like it to be situational awareness. And what if we could detect a fire in the first 60 seconds or 3 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? And so everything from ground-based sensors that identify products of combustion that are cellular enabled, and they're spaced out a distance that they identify a fire that's not a barbecue, it's a wildland fire before a human might have identified it, all the way up to spaceborne stuff. A lot of also ground-based cameras on elevated platforms, and then spaceborne, low altitude, low Earth orbit satellites. And then how might we suppress it really quickly, either from an autonomous drone or helicopter to I just was speaking to a team the other day looking at a catapult launcher. How can we target 10 gallons of water exactly where we need with like a giant rubber band launcher? You've got a 10 gallon capsule in there.
Wait, like the medieval catapult kind of thing you're talking about, but obviously with a lot more precision. But is that the idea here?
I'm going to have a lot of chats to put in. Yeah. And the other thing, go to conferences, right? Go to FRI, go to Technology Summit International, go to the FDIC Next Gen Tech Summit. But yeah, it's called Fire Dome, Zam, and I'm going to put it in the chat for you right now. Right. So we start tracking these things.
So for those that are just listening to this, we'll have this in the show notes so you can kind of go to check out some of these things. But I think that's the cool part about it, right? Like somebody was like, "Hey, you go back to the firehouse with that website, you're going to be popular. You'll be like, we got to check this out. Is this for real?" Right? Like half of this stuff. And Kirk, you've been in this for a while. Like you've obviously been submersed in the innovation side of stuff. Is there something that you still go, no way that's ever going to be here? Or are you now just convinced, like you said, they're going to say this and it's going to happen. It's coming.
Option B.
Option B. You're like,
yeah. And that was actually with Sam Bernardino. The chief and I spent, I guess, a couple of years arguing about. He said, "No, maybe in 10 years." And I kept showing more and more, and got the chief to go to Augmented World Expo, for instance, where, augmented reality, it's being built for everyone. It's being hardened from teams like QuakeTech to give us thermal imaging on the helmet, and a few other suppliers in the area. And then how does that feed go back to command? And how does command know where we are inside a structure or a wildfire, what our heart rate is, what our lactate is? UC San Diego has digital tattoos that can give real-time lactate and real-time glucose of our personnel. Because when they're out there working hard, It'd be great to maybe if we had an AI-enabled warning system that could identify when a firefighter was reaching 90% of their capacity, whether it's cardiac output or, it's not just, where are they and how much air do they have? Those are basic things we should have done a long time ago. So for me, I don't just imagine a singularity, if you will, and in a connection of IoT sensors. I expect it to be here soon. I expect it to be really hard and complicated, and a lot of gnashing of teeth along the way about budget and tech stacks not working. And well, what are you going to do when the system fails? Well, I guess we'll just go back to bonking two-way voice like we've done for way too long. But what about when it does work? And most importantly, when it connects to the end user. The end user is not the paramedic, the EMS provider, the rescue tech, the swift water person, the high angle rope person. The end user is the person they're trying to fix. And how do we connect the caller, right? 700,000 times a day in America, someone calls 911. How do we connect the various things? Because we all have these systems that here, we're on this video chat. I can share you links. I can share you documents. I can screen share. How much of this has to do with most emergency response systems these days? It's starting to get there, but I've never used this platform. Oh, this looks great. Send me a link. Bam, we're here.
Right. And I think I go back to, I started in the fire service 20 years ago, and we didn't even have maps on our CAD systems. We had these big map books that were projectiles. If you ever got in an accident, this big map book would, right? Like, they were worried about carrying an axe in the back of the engine. Like, Chief, this map book is a projectile within itself. But now you look at how well we're using, maps. Everybody has, Pulse Point can now on the palm of my hand show me where hydrants are, real-time traffic. We have ChatGPT that can help me write reports. You had mentioned, with the wildland fires, we have technology to help with that. You talked about firefighter accountability. We're having technology where we can signal in and see where our firefighters are. What other major issues are we having in the fire service that we need to start embracing technology? How about like with recruitment? How can we use technology for recruitment?
Oh boy, there's so much to say. I was saying earlier today about I got in almost 40 years ago. 37 years ago, and we were the business because we could hear the call to dispatch in the station.
Oh, sure.
And then we could talk countywide. Back when before your time, phones had to be connected to copper wire. They're way before fax machines and we had cutting edge equipment.
Did you have the dial in where you had to go 1 tick tick 2 tick tick tick?
Yeah.
Or 2 tick.
You think you're making this up?
Yeah.
So the progression of the tech has moved faster than our adoption, and so you mentioned Pulse Point. You got Active 911. You got Tablet Command. You got First Do, Esri. We have all these various systems, Image Trend and Terra. Right, there's dozens and dozens, and now we have API integration where these various things can start to come together. And you've got teams like Darley and IDEX and some of the other big suppliers, the OEMs, including vehicle manufacturers that have identified that technology is a bit of a lure, maybe a carrot for the next generation. Before I retired from active duty, so maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we were doing some VR training for firefighters in the station, and some news crews came out, and Janelle, we ended up doing a piece in fire rescue. We'll make sure folks know about that at Casunas Fire, about using immersive learning to train our personnel. And the fire on the wall behind me that we did with NASA to train their AI program in 2018, we have the 360 video of it. You can go inside the fire and see it. And it's inspiring to the generation who grew up gaming. Right? Yeah. I grew up bowling and pinball. Gaming was not a thing yet. I remember when Pong first came out, which you'd have to look that up in dictionary probably. But
been there.
Okay. So so the teams identify that the technology is a lure for the next generation. And in this day we had at Casunas, one of the folks was a new student at the college, just thinking maybe about firefighting, and somebody asked him, well, what do you think about technology? And he said, if it doesn't have a touch screen on it, I'm not using it. And I thought, okay, we have axes and Halligans and hoses. Well, now we have smart hoses, but we have all these things that it's a blue collar job. We get sweaty and gritty and salty, and it's never not going to be that. And that's wonderful heritage for us. And yet, how do we make that smart and then leverage the technology as a lure? Because the next generation, somebody along the way told them, oh, you know, use your mind, not your body. Like if you're doing labor your whole life, you're going to be feeling really old when you're my age. Mm-hmm. And so technology, they're digital natives.
Yeah.
And it speaks to them.
Well, and I think too, you already kind of opened the door for, well, there could be a drone division within the fire service. There could be a robotics division within the fire service. There could be, you look at even maybe we have people that just do the tech command side of things, right? I think there's all kinds of jobs within the fire service and even frontline, right? Our engineers are, as the equipment and apparatus start to become more technical, and that might be a totally different specialty. So I think we need to start highlighting some of that technology, right, to get the next generation interested, right?
Absolutely. I only know of half a dozen, maybe 10 agencies that have a formal CTO. Every agency needs basically a CTO or someone functioning as that, even if it's, a tiny 20-person volunteer agency. Somebody has to take the lead on this. Like somebody used to take the lead on emails or having, the computer or the mobile data terminals, whatever it was. Somebody's got to take the lead. And yes, you've got teams like FDNY and San Bernardino who both have drones and robotics effort, like full time. FDNY, I think, has 20 or more members. So each day there's 4 or 5 people on duty. But a small agency, you can have somebody, right? The engineer at Station 2 on C shift does that. They have a hobby, a drones or radio controlled aircraft or whatever on this. And so, you put it, you write your letter of intent. I'd like to lead that program for the agency. Bam, we have something up and running. You don't need a 20-person team. You only have 25 personnel on the roster. And then someone else does the advanced voice system, so we can do radio over internet protocol. And then you've got somebody else working on vision systems, computer vision. It's here today.
Well, and that all plays into the recruitment piece. I mean, you could put out there, hey, do you have a gaming background? Do you have this? And make it work for them. Something that maybe some of us would have considered a hindrance, right? With certain kinds of jobs now become a selling point for the department. We want you on our team. Are you willing to take the lead?
It's an asset. Yeah. Yes. Back years ago, it was always, do you have any construction experience?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I helped build 3 houses while I was going to school and so on. And right, so the difference between a 2x4 and a 4x12. And intimately, I know the difference. And various classes, building classes, and how long they may be able to, survive being, exposed to fire. And I said, yeah, but there's somebody who's working on their PhD to use computer vision to understand when the ceiling's going to collapse, because they can detect the deflection of the ceiling joists. So how about we warn? I love that. Yeah. So I'll get that link over too, if you'd like. And I imagined that almost 10 years ago, but now somebody's doing their PhD thesis on it.
Yeah. It's crazy because the other side of this too is that as technology develops around, I would say outside of the fire service, we within the fire service need to know how to deal with it when it goes wrong too, right? Now, are there plans in place for departments for a drone crash, or, obviously the lithium ion batteries, but we're being exposed now, the data center fire, like data centers now that are coming up. So as technology advances, we also need to go the other side and know how to deal with it in the general population. Are you having conversations a lot with departments about that also?
Yeah, of course. Just like when we started to see photovoltaic systems come out, and how do we de-energize it or disconnect a direct current system? And now we're having fires with lithium, and how do we inert lithium? UL and FDNY have done great work, still doing a great amount of work on that, because that problem is not going away, because the batteries are out there and still being produced. And I'm having conversations with folks. Like I did a talk a while back and about next gen tech, as is typical, and asked who here has a policy on autonomous vehicle response. And we get called out for a fully autonomous vehicle, right? There's no driver, there's no one in it. Maybe it has a passenger in the back seat that's a paying customer. How do we handle that?
Right.
If we put wheel chocks under the wheel, does it stop the vehicle? How do we communicate with the supplier? And I was grateful that one of the folks raised their hand and said, yeah, we have a draft policy, and we did a little chatting offline, and they sent me the draft, and that's great. They had the phone numbers for the 8 autonomous vehicle companies that this is their emergency number to reach out to them. And okay, now how do we do the public-private partnership as an industry and get autonomous vehicle companies to come and speak to iChief's Tech Council, for instance, and help educate us on because it's all been internal, say, for 10 or 15 years, but now it's getting out into the public, but they've had emergency response protocols inside. How do we get ready for that? Because your projectile style map book, it's digital. And when I was retiring, I was having trouble with my MDC or tablet. The firefighter in the back's like, I got it, third right, mile and a half down. They're just on their personal phone and they're routing for me. So how do we keep up with the tech? Well, we're not going to keep up. How do we do what we can?
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah. I also even think about lights, right? Like lighting up a scene, seeing through the fire, right? The technology with ticks, but also just everything from flashlights to ticks to, you have glasses on, and I was just like, I need readers. But now I see that there's AI readers that can change based on, what I'm trying to read or the size of it, right? Like there are so many different avenues of how we should start to embrace it as a fire service. And so like, it makes me think about, all right, you've been immersed in this. So let's play this game. I have a fire department and I'm sitting here at my desk and don't worry about funds. I'm going to be funded by, let's say I'm funded by Facebook and Microsoft because they want to create the virtual or the next gen fire department. And Kirk, you are my chief. Where do you start? What does that look like? Go. Give us the rundown on how you're going to do this.
This should be fun. Let's say I've given it some thought. I have, I think, 190 pages of content I've put together over a decade that has hundreds and hundreds of links. I mean, it's 190 pages of content, and the content might be one line of script with a link to a thing, whether it's an exoskeleton that DEVCOM, the Army, has been testing all these different exoskeletons to humanoid robots or quadruped robots or fully autonomous airborne system, autonomous apparatus, smart nozzles. You open the nozzle, you get the gallon that you want it from it. The SAM system that IDEX has got. I've given this some thought.
Yeah, right. All right.
And for me, I got into three-dimensional technologies, gaming technologies, for investigating and documenting fire and explosion. And do you know what a 3D laser scanner is?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, for the listeners that aren't familiar, laser measuring tools, like for construction, can measure very accurately with a beam of laser how long, time of flight, how long does it take to get there and come back to me. I know the distance. Well, if you do that 1 million times a second and it's spinning around in a circle, you can, and then you merge that with other 3D sensing devices, then all of a sudden you have a digital twin of the space. And so I got into that about 15 years ago, and then pivoted, I guess about a decade ago, to, instead of investigating death, because I had scanned a cadaver burned in a trench and 3D printed it as proof of concept, you could take perishable evidence to the courthouse. But look, I got in the business to save lives. So I imagined this thing that, yeah, you've got smart glasses that are forward looking, that have remote sensing capabilities. They can scan and measure their scene in 3D while you're walking around, or they can be on top of fire apparatus. That then enables spatial computing. And I've jumped right to the finish. The end goal is Iron Man, right? I want to be Iron Man. I don't need the jet suit, but I want all the information I might have right here. And I want compute at the edge, quantum compute at the edge.
Well, not to stop you, but you know it's got to look cool like Iron Man, though, for us to buy in. Just saying.
Yeah.
And if you want to model, man, I'll model, because it's got to be a cool thing in order for us to buy in. But sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. It's got to beat the best of our best, or gritty, hardworking, salty personnel. It's got to beat them at their job, and that pretty much, that's the challenge. And without instruction, without it being too cumbersome, without it dying from a battery problem or the software glitches or whatever, it's got to work. It's got to work now, and they just got to put on and go. Quake Tech just announced today, they're friends of mine, that's me in the background where I've got the green over my eye. It could be zero visible light, and I can see infrared, the outline of where I am inside a fire. And that was, I first saw that in 2017, and they announced today the first production lines are coming off and going out to agencies for use. That's just the first step. Meanwhile, you mentioned Meta and Microsoft. All the $1 trillion companies are working on this so that everyone has it available in a form factor like this. It's not going to be some big, heavy, clunky. It's going to be just a form factor. Reading glasses. Just do a little Google in there, and you'll find some of what's coming. Because if our listeners haven't heard of Web 3, they need to. Web 3.0 is basically it's the 3D web. We're going to do spatial computing. So today, people are scanning their homes with their phone through photogrammetry or Gaussian splats. These are words I can get. I can get links for Janelle with teams like, so they can test the couch to see if their new couch is going to fit and how it's going to look. They're going to do that in mixed reality.
Yeah, Amazon says, observe this in your room, right? They'll have a product. Yeah.
Bingo. And so I wanted to build Pokey 911, or I like 911 Go, a term that like everyone has it on their phone. They know their exit pathways in 3D of a hotel, a theater, active shooter, earthquake, flood, fire, natural man-made disaster. Everyone has it. And then they know where the responders are, and vice versa, and spatial computing. So this is what I imagine. And I just, I've had some dialogue with Niantic, and we've talked about, we're looking to do something coming up soon, and some folks on the Hill who are working with Congress on behalf of the $1 trillion companies who are working on XR, whether our industry cares or not, because it's coming. And I just saw Niantic, which is Pokemon Go's parent company, came out with a little necklace that senses a scene real time, so that like everyone can feed into the greater digital twin of the planet.
This is kind of like our suit of the future that would have all of this information like accessible right in front of us based on what we're looking at. Correct? Like,
yes. And at one point there's a filter. So we don't want cognitive overload. It's giving the information we need at the time that we need it to. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of minutia to get in there. And for me, like I said, I don't need the jet suit, but I could have a jet pack or a advanced air mobility vehicle to fly me places. But yes, I want it here. I could just call on the radio, but I want it here. And instead of command calling for a PAR, they know where I am, and I have smart fabric in my PPE, right? That's measuring me. Yeah, what's my hydration level? Yeah, of course. What's my air level? That should have been solved a long time ago.
Yeah. How do you get there, though? Let's talk about that. Like, what's driving you there?
Well, what's driving me there is
let's even think about that.
What's that?
Or flying you there.
Yeah. Well,
right. I mean,
yeah. You could have this flying car idea. It's a couple $100,000. You could fly anywhere you want in 30 minutes. With the appropriate airspace. It's an ultralight, so it flies not over congested areas. You have to have the right airspace, but you don't need a formal pilot's license, and it doesn't need a runway. It needs a patch of about 30 square feet and go straight up. And then
do you see that eventually becoming like, can it hold enough weight to have water, a crew? Or I guess I should even stay back. I got too excited there, but like, what's the next generation fire truck for us look like that you're using with your department? Is it smart technology? Obviously you talked about smart nozzles, but what else do we have within that cab or that vehicle that's utilizing the next gen of technology?
Well, I don't want to go off the rails, but I've had people suggest to me that the idea of going and waiting in the firehouse for a call seems kind of silly. We should be going about our life with our equipment, and if we opt in to be on duty in a spatially aware system, the closest appropriate fire apparatus drives to the scene and we meet it there.
Oh my God. So you're almost talking like Uber fire department in a way, right? Like
if our personnel don't think that teams like Uber and Amazon are shopping for the easy, especially the medical calls, they ought to consider that opportunity that someone else might be thinking about this.
Yeah.
With fully autonomous systems. And so let's help drive the narrative. And how do we get there? We work private public partnerships, from little teeny teams to $1 trillion companies. They all want to talk to us. I mean, that is the industry. They think they can help. They know they can help, whether it's a statewide data center, whether it's compute at the edge, whether it's advanced imaging systems. They're working on this with our Department of Defense, with NASA, Defense Innovation Unit, National Security Innovation Network, DevCom, SOFCOM, AFWorks. We open ourselves up to the opportunity. And so I would say even the smallest or the least well-funded agency, somebody in their jurisdiction has got some tech that they want to bring to public safety, and they just want to ask public safety, hey, could this work for you? How do we open the door? So most of what I got done at Casumnas was donated, almost all of it. Like, agencies just sent us VR equipment because they said, oh, would you use it, and give us your opinion.
So people want to, it sounds like a lot of these agencies want to help as they develop things. They want to know what other uses it could have, correct?
It's a feel-good thing.
Yeah.
It's good marketing for them. and they, everybody wants to make a difference.
And does that put the onus on the chiefs? Like, are chiefs just picking up the phone and cold calling these departments and just saying, "Hey, you want to share something with us?" Like, what does that process look like to make?
Well, that's great. Well, I started with LinkedIn actually to look up, okay, who I want to talk to somebody here or there. How do I find if it's a big team, I look for public safety officer or public safety strategist for a big group. It's amazing. A lot of opportunities there. And sure, I think a cold call is appropriate, or a cold email. And I was amazed at the opportunity, the stuff that I got back. And then teams like DHS and NASA, getting in working groups, volunteering time on working groups. NIST has done a whole bunch. NIST Public Safety Communication Research Group, and I just put myself out there and threw some ideas out there. Won a little cash for the fire department, and gave all the winnings to the fire department and all the equipment to help launch the idea. And most of the time, it was really well received.
Yeah, and with this though, you've had all of this tech, and all these companies you've had, been connected with, and I'm sure one just astounds the next, right? You're just like, oh man, they do this. But if you had one, like, what's one technology that's really just you've looked at and it's just blown your mind? It's exceeded any of your expectations.
For me, it's the thermal in front of the eye. So as a captain crawling down the hallway, scanning high, medium, low with my tick, and then having to translate that through voice to my nozzle member or somebody else dragging hose for me, that's really hard to do. So the three of us being able to see in zero visible light, thermal imaging, that's a big one for me.
And that's right integrated within the mask too, is what you're talking about too, right?
It started in the mask. Now it's helmet mounted, drop down.
Okay.
Yeah, drop down
screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the individual basis, we always talk about health and wellness, and I know there's a lot of technology. What's the one piece of technology, or what's some of the stuff that you're experiencing on that side, working on the health and wellness of the firefighter, that you're really excited about, or think we need to embrace even more?
I know I've seen people working on the mission, mental, emotional, and behavioral health. How do we have an AI system or a machine system that can read what are our how are we based on our eye movement and other metrics to help evaluate our personnel? For me, it's the physiology part. I helped keep our wellness program going at the fire department for a long time, and was really into getting personnel in to get their 12 lead stress tests, their CBC, their Chem 7, and their other evaluations. What's their VO2 max? Is it going up or down? What's their max heart rate compared to theoretical? What's their power output at their max heart rate? And you got folks like Ascent Integrated Technologies. I just got their intelligent watch, which of course people listening can't see, but I've got a smart watch. It goes into Team Awareness Kit, which came out of Air Force Research Lab, and command can see where I am and know what my heart rate is. And then I want to know what's next. I'm real excited on the smart fabric and the smart integration of, where are people? How are they? And I mean, assuming that they're going to let us know, right? Like, we have to have them opt in. I don't want to get into privacy and security with this.
Yeah.
But
it's big time.
But shouldn't they have the option if they wanted to?
Yeah.
So that when they don't have to call a Mayday. More than 60% of males' first indication of cardiovascular health issues is an MI.
Yeah.
So Yeah. How do we affect
Can
that?
we sense that? Yeah. I think too, like the wearable side of that, not just on the wrist, but like what you're talking about is integrated in with the uniform, right? Like we're wearing and those sensors are built in. And I've seen that already with some of the athletic teams. It's all that stuff is monitored real time. And I think that's a slippery slope. There's a lot of people going, oh, maybe we don't want to know that. But I think if we can use AI to predict things, right? Like you were saying, if we can use AI to predict when people are maybe having some trauma or maybe about to have that heart attack, maybe we can use it that way.
Yeah. The goal is to keep people on the line, right? Fit for duty.
Yep. Yeah. Not to be able to say, hey, you're not fit to do the job. It's what can we do to keep you there and keep you working? And, and I think we could do a whole nother thing on just, the clothing, apparel, and the technology that's gone into that, which Janelle, you're writing these ideas down, right? Because I'd love to see, if you ever want to share any of the apparel that you get, when you need a tester, Kirk, I am.
You're in. All right.
Volunteering wholeheartedly. But I have one more question because we geeked out. We talked all tech, and we talked about. Stuff. I'm still the catapult thing. I'm still stuck on that. This just the different surveillance things that we have going on with fire departments. But what's that one analog, I guess, piece of equipment that you are always going to be kind of indebted to and use?
Yeah, well, to me, I guess it makes me think from when people talk about, the misnomer. And I remember the late, great Bobby Halton and I going, that him having making a point about that the fire service is innovative. When people say, it's 100 years of tradition unchanged by progress or 200 years. That's not true at all. But it's not necessarily comfortable. And I think it was the 1670s that the Vanderheidens said, these buckets that we use to carry the water to put on fires have been really useful for many, many years. But what if we put it in a tube and squirted it out? And can you imagine the grief that they got from you want to do what? You want to put it in a tube. Well, the tube's only going to be so long. And they invented it at 50-foot lengths, which we still use today.
Yeah.
And it was a long, slow, heavy lift. And then we had to have piping that we could get to and then drill a hole in. And that's where the fire plug comes from, of course. But I think the fire hose, right? That's still I know that the guys on the truck, guys and gals working ladder one, they only have their 10 gallons. But for those who spent their career on an engine mostly, I think it's a fire hose. That's my legacy tool.
I love it. I'm right there with you. Still engine crew. Still, there's a great feeling when you're putting that water on that fire and you're watching how it responds with a hose, right? Like
well, when it responds well.
When it responds, yes, when it responds well, yes, exactly right. And I think what you're talking about is how we can use technology to help us know when it doesn't respond well, other than just our regular senses. But great conversation, Kirk. We could go on. I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations with you, and I can't wait for them. But the essence of what we're trying to do with the podcast is how can we prepare, everybody, next generation to be a little bit better. And I think you gave us some great resources for people to start to dive in and geek out and understand what's coming on technology. And I greatly appreciate that. But I got to come back to we're all a work in progress. And so for you personally, you like to geek out, and I do too. People could probably tell by just how excited I am about talking about. But what are you really working on personally to improve your life, improve just your surroundings? What would you say you're a work in progress in?
Well, the key for me is look after myself. I'm not a young man anymore. I'm looking to get out on the bike this evening, keep my cardiovascular fitness up, and stay healthy, eat right, all things in moderation. And then for tech, for the industry, it's I just decided that relatively recently is I want to be the Inspector Gadget. I want to have so when I go visit an agency, whether it's with Pivotal, the flying car, the VTOL company, or whatever it is, when I go out in the field, I want to be as equipped as I can be equipped, even as a civilian. I'm retired annuitant now up in the fire department, but in part it's to help Casumas with recruitment of the next generation of personnel. So when I show up, I want to have smart wearables and extended reality solutions in my pocket, in the trunk, that I can show them firsthand.
Yeah, I like that. You're the Inspector Gadget of the fire service, which is that's a great place to be right now with all the different options and the potential.
It's pop culture, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we could find like a new kind of a feature, Janelle, where we just have him like show us some of the new technologies, and show them off, go gadget apparatus, right? So I'm excited. We'll keep this kind of going. We'll keep the fire burning with our audience about what's coming up next in technology. And thank you for being that resource for us and sharing all this stuff with us, Kirk. For all those that have just listened to us, I highly encourage you to, on this one, go to our YouTube page or check out the notes, because there's a lot of links to some of the new age things that we talked about with Captain Kirk, or go Gadget Kirk on this episode. And again, thanks to all you guys out there for listening and being members of this Better Every Shift concept. We greatly appreciate it. You can email us if you have questions for Kirk, if you have questions for myself, bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. And now I urge you just to get out there, learn something, do something, and then share something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening.